some exercises or have a fun time or good time. No, we are here because we believe you can change the world. I mean, sometimes the world is not so big as we think it is. We cannot change the whole world, but it can change something in the world. But together we can change the world. And this is, we want to make a change. That's the reason why we are here. And what gave me really angry, or let's say what saddened me, is when I see a lot of Christians sitting in the church but don't use their potential. And this is what I observe. I think a lot of Christians sitting in the churches, but they don't use their potential. There is a lot of potential, but it's not used. And the reason is because probably they don't know how to use it, or nobody is telling them to use it. And for me, my observation is that sometimes the church is like, it's like a program, and you have good experience. It could be fun, and it could be a cozy place. And some people in the church, they are really activists. They are always busy building a big fancy church and a big worship and a great prayer time. But let some go as well to evangelism. It's not, I don't want to say that's bad, but I think the most of the potential is still not used in the church. Because when a preach to the people, then 95% of the audience are not working in the church, are not do activities in the church. They probably not do evangelism. They don't do worship. They don't do preach. They are not attending the prayer times, what the priests always say they should do. But most of them, they go back on Monday to work and doing their work. But what do they do in their work? Okay, do they earn money that they can give into mission? Or do they earn money to give into the church, to support the pastors, to support the missionaries? So what is the goal of work? For me, it was a huge problem. When I was so young as you, I had a conflict. I was an architect. I worked as architect, but somehow, 5 days I worked as architect, and on Saturday I did scouts and youth group, and then on Sunday was church and all these activities. And actually, not just me, a lot of people, they lived for the weekend. And they always said, oh, it's great that it's Friday, then work is over and we can start with life. And this happened not only by the Christians, it's happened as well by the non-Christians. I mean, actually, for what do they work? They work that they have the money for enjoying their time on the weekend. But this is not the goal of life. I don't think that's the goal of life. So I was in this tension. I went to university. In university, they told me, so you have to do the job faster, smarter, and with less people. And if you not do that, you will not survive in business. I went to my job, I did that, and you can guess how the people liked me with this attitude. Or actually, people don't like that. Because it's not the purpose of life. They are not slaves just doing their work. But I was trained like that in university. I did that in my job, and on the weekend, I went to church. Fun. But for me, it was a dualism. It was like two worlds. It has nothing to do with one another. And I earned more the money in my secular job that I can then really invest in, let's say, the church and all these activities and so on. And of course, to survive and have something to eat. But this, I don't think it's the sense of life. So, and I think that a lot of Christians sitting in the church, but their potential is not used. And this is why we do the SBCW. This is the reason. We want to encourage people. We want to empower people that they can use their potential. So our goal is we want to make missionaries in every sphere of society. That's the goal. Make missionaries in every sphere of society. So it's not about having more knowledge, know all the critical differences in the Bible and why they are believing this and why they are believing that. I mean, it's good to know that. And we should be in that and understand it. But it's not about that. It's about that we empower people to become missionaries in every sphere of society. Another thing that makes me angry is when I see here in the West, especially in Switzerland, that our values, Christians' values, decrease, go down. 20 years ago, in my youth, or even it was more than 20 years, probably 25. And no, then it was really different. I don't know if you can imagine the time 25 years ago or so, 20 years ago. It was really different. There was no question about gender ideology. No question. A man was a man, a wife was a wife. When somebody, there were some philosophers who probably had some thoughts, but they were really, really rare. I mean, people believed in that. A man is a man, a wife is a wife. Or even before, they believed a marriage is between man and a wife. No debate. When I was young, there was no debate. There was no talk in the church that it could be different. But today, when I look, the church have homosexual pastors. The church are no more so sure, is this really the only one way to go? I mean, what the church is focusing on is coming to heaven. And so they have now the 4 laws, and when you raise up your hand, then you are in heaven. But actually, I don't think that's Christianity. I think that's a fleeing from the world. It's a philosophical thought that Rousseau or others had. No, we are made to bring God's kingdom to the world, to change the world, to bring change, to bring healing to broken nations. We are called to bring healing to people. But the problem is that what I see that often the Christians are no more used to do that. They are no more equipped to do that. But what they have is their spiritual or church language where they talk about this and this and this, and the secular world is not understanding them. They have no more language how to address the needs of the world. And this is a pain for me. And I see that in the Western world that, I mean, Christianity made the West and made all the values that we had in the West, like democracy. Democracy is made for sinners. That's the reason. We will hear more about that. But the political system, the economical system, the education system, and so on and so on. We heard already a lot from Ywam. But so we did that. We built the family, or the idea, what is a family? We heard Ywam talking about that. But today we all abolish these values in the world because the church is no more able to address that. They are too far away to address it, and they have to be politically correct, and that they not get kicked out of society. But I think we have to go into society, and we have to become relevant for society again. And therefore, we need a language that addresses the needs of the society. We don't have to become activists. Like some Christians become activists and do the same thing as the UN is doing, or as the Red Cross is doing, and all these organizations. And they do good things. They do it based on biblical Christian values. But these values also in the UN go down, and we have to bring an alternative. And we not just be activists. We have to bring an alternative out of a biblical Christian worldview. This is what we are doing in the school. So this is the reason why you are here. You're here. We want to empower you that you become a missionary, go out and bring the kingdom of God. You bring change. You are called to make change. Not like Ywam say, this dog bites behind the horse car. Or you are not a dog behind the horse car. You are not like a cow eating grass in a stuff. It can be a nice cow, and she has a nice farmer, and the farmer bring her a lot of food, and so we are not that. It's not about having nice food, having all that. We are called to make a difference, and we can do it. We can do it when we start to recover our potential that we have in Jesus Christ. Then we would be able to bring a change in the world. And this is the reason why we are doing this school. So, and we should not be, sometimes it's too much with Ywam was thought, or it's too much there. It could be, but this is not the reason. The reason is that we want to equip you to become missionaries in every sphere of society. And we believe that you can do that. It's a lot of work. It's not easy. I tell you, it's not easy. Don't come here and think, easy, now I hear something and then I will become the president of my nation. No, that's not the way. It's a hard way. It's a long way to go. But we are here to go the way. We are here to bring a change. And so this is the reason why we do this SBCW. So this week we am talking about this creation for redemption. So in our school, Bart already talked about this big plan. So, and therefore I have to be a bit to bring something new, and so and therefore I will not go like in all the scriptures and go again the same thing that he did. So in the beginning, I want to start with the PowerPoint here. So this is called Be a Junior Partner of God. It's not first starting with the Bible. It's more starting about what is our what do we like to do, or what is our calling. What is the Spirit? What does the Spirit is doing? I hope this is the right image, is it? Okay. Somehow understandable.
I understand what you're saying.
Okay. I think it's just a translation of the Google Translate. No, but this was a big question that I had. What is the Holy Spirit doing? Is it just we pray and He's coming and flow and I feel good? Is this the thing that He's doing? Or then I feel happy, and I mean, what He is really doing. So I'm an architect. That's my profession. So what is an architect doing? So actually, I have really a holy profession or a holy career. I started as a carpenter, did my apprenticeship as a carpenter like Jesus did. Mm-hmm. And so now I became an architect like God is. So I actually have this wonderful, spiritual, great career. No, that's a joke. But so what is the architect doing? He's designing. Yeah. He's
complicated mathematics to
put
it into the practical.
It's more probably the engineer who is doing that.
Well, you're kind of like constructing the house and making it flow well, and you're like
planning
how to make it all work well.
But the first thing what he's creating something. Or let's see, here is an empty field. Then what the architect is doing, I forgot to bring a plan with me. But so let's do. He's designing. He has something in mind, a house on this empty field. Then he starts to design like this. He is designing a house. It's not so nice. This was actually a house that I did, and in the end it was like this. So there's a house that I designed. So you saw the empty field before. There was nothing. Or so the architect has an idea. Well, there should be a house. Start to design a house, and then They build a house, and in the end you have a house, and this is then the house in the end. It's a bit from the other perspective, therefore everything is a bit different. Actually, this is the house where I grew up, or not really grew up. I was already in apprenticeship as we built the house. Yeah, but this is an architect doing. He creating something out of nothing. Through what?
Through creativity.
What did you say? Sorry.
Like by spirit.
By spirit, by his idea, by his head. There's nothing. It's invisible, but it's here. It's here. It's not there. It's already here, but invisible. So let's say he created something out of invisible to visible. So he makes something visible. So for me, that's the Spirit of God is doing. He helped me to believe something, have something in mind, and make it visible. So for me, then that was so this wow. But I think often the church has this dualistic split, or the worldly. They say worldly, the world. That's cinemas and cars and house, but then have the spiritual things that mean faith. They have, let's say, they have prayer and worship and service and church, and all this is the spiritual world. And often I see this split. And then they ask, what is the Spirit doing? And then only thinking this, what can he do in my prayer? What can he do in all these church activities? But he wants to be active in your life. That you start to create out of nothing something. That you make something visible. That you make God's kingdom visible. That's the idea. But what we believe, what I believe, that's the view of man. So when you look now to this, do you like that? Who of you likes this place? Who of you wants to be in this place? Nobody, huh? But why people are living in this place? Do you think God would love to live there? Or God loved that people live there? But why do we think as Christians, okay, man, they live there and it's okay? Or like this? Like this? Like this? Joel, do you know where it is? There. Was it you that you came to me? No. But this was after the Dutch came to Switzerland. It was the game between Switzerland and the Dutchies. And so I think Switzerland won. I don't know. But anyway, it was in the European Cup. And so after that, Holborn was a mess. Not just from the Dutchies, but from every who came to the football game. And it looks like this. But normally it's very clean here in Switzerland. But so look to that. So this was my working place. I was the CEO of this place. Great, huh? But they looked for somebody who would take the youth ministry, run this ministry in these buildings. So I was the one who was chosen for it. So I came to the building, and it was an indoor skating park. So you can see just a picture here. And this was from the other side. So, and it looks, do you think it looks nice?
It's not terrible.
It's not terrible? It was always a mess. It was really a mess and dirty and really ugly. And so I said, can we not change that? Can we not change it? I sat with my youth together and say, do you believe that we can change something? And they say, no, you cannot change it. When you will change it, then everybody is coming and destroy it. I said, no, I don't believe that. Because the people like beauty. Somehow they like beauty. So let's do something. I sit my kids together and we discuss what we can do. So they start to make projects. And this project then won. It was this project. So, and in the end, it looks like this. And you can see that that was a car of my staff. It's a Jaguar, by the way. It's funny because he came always with this fancy car to the work. But anyway, yeah, and they could do something. They could change it, and nobody believed me. But it lasted over a year. Nobody made a graffiti on that. Everywhere else, but not on that. And I talked with my youth together, say, I think we like beauty. We like when it's nice. And because it was so successful, because by themselves they did it, and not we did it. They did it by themselves, and so they took care that nobody is doing something to it. But I want to give an object lesson to them that actually we like beauty, and we not like to live in a mess. We like to live in a nice place. Everybody of us is doing that. So when you say, do you like this picture more or do you like this picture more? Where you want to live? Of course, in this, everybody would choose that. Or let's say this or this, or this or this. I mean, we don't have to debate about that. I think it's obviously clear that we all want to live in these nice, beautiful places because we are made for beauty. We are made for beauty. We are made to have a good life. We are made, that's our DNA in God. Because God is beauty and He created beauty. We are made in His image. Therefore, we like that. We don't like to be in a mess. We don't like to be in an ugly place. So this was in India. I forgot the name, but this was in India. So I made an interview on the street with people and asked them, do you like to live in this? There are these two pictures representing the view. Also one is on the street where I did my interview, and the other is a bit behind. And the third one is a picture. It was a painting, or not a painting, it was advertising for this for a park that they want to make in this place. And it was do you see that in the picture up there? There is a sign there, and this is on this sign on the other side. But it's here, and this one is on the other side. It was this advertising of this fancy place. So then I ask always, so do you like this one, or would you like to be in this one? Everybody said that. Nobody likes the dirty place where they are, and all want to be in this place where they see in the advertising. So I really believe that people like to be in a beauty place, or I mean, look to that or look to that. So which one would you choose? It's obviously we don't want to have pain. We don't want to have war. We are looking for that. And I think God created the world for eternity. I think that, and He created it with beauty. He created it with care, and He created it to be a nice place. And when we look to the creation, so He created the world. That's the world, and then He created the sun, or the sun is going around the world, or differently, and the world is going around the sun. But He created this in a circle. The sun is coming every day. It's for eternity. So when we look to the circle of the water is coming down from heaven, then they evaporate again from the sea, and this is in a circle. We have a food circle. We have the photovoltaic. It is photosynthesis who will change the CO2 to O2 again, and so on and so on. So I think that God created the world for eternity, and we are here to help that this can run for eternity. That's the view of mine. It's the purpose. So for a little illustration. Do you know this car? A Beetle, yeah. So let's say I can summarize the Bible with 3 words. And this is, I can present that with this card. Also, the first one is this, the creation of a beetle. The second one is the fall, the destruction. The third one is the new creation. So it's actually, you see, it's a beetle. So it's not absolutely new, but this is what I think we should praise God. We are made in His image to create new things. So today we see often this picture, and the question is: so how long the world will survive? What will be the future? We have this global warming and all of these things, and a lot of young people that I know, they don't have hope anymore. Well, what is the end? Or we will end in a disaster, and then there's the war and all the things. And I mean, this is something I think the church is no more able to address hope to the world. And they don't know what to say to the global warming. So we will have once a teaching about global warming here in school. But we have to stand up and give hope in all these situations. Otherwise, I think that when we not do that, then let's say the West is coming back to animism. So animism in the sense that nature is determining man, and not man is determining nature. So we were the animists 1,500 years ago here in the West. So the Christians came and made us to a junior partner of God. So we believe that we can shape the world, and we shape the world and build civilization. But now, when they take God out of that, man become a victim of nature again. And nature determines what's happened with man again. And this is calling animism. It's calling modern animism. And probably this animism has a lot of technology behind it and a lot of science, in the sense science. But actually it's animism. It's the same thing. We are determined from, let's say now, more academical, scientific way of nature, but still of nature. It's the same like in Africa when they are determined by nature, by the spirits, and so blah, blah, blah. We are the same. So God made us free, not to be determined by nature. We are determined by His Spirit. We are determined by Him because God made us this way. So I think we as Christians, we need to give answers in the 21st century to such things like global warming and like all the gender ideology and so on. So here a video that should tell a bit more about it. Let's play it, huh? Where is it here?
Overpopulation. Way back in 1950, when my parents were born, there were 2.5 billion people on this planet. By the time I arrived in 1985, this had doubled to 5 billion people. Today, there are roughly 7 billion, and by the time I'll retire, it's expected to be around 10 billion people. That means that it took from the beginning of humanity 200,000 years ago until 1950 to reach 2.5 billion people, but it will only take 100 more years to add 3 times that amount. In other words, the population is growing exponentially. Let me put it differently. By the time you've reached the end of this video, about 300 people have been added to the planet. In an hour from now, there will be 8,500 more people, and this time tomorrow, we'll have 200,000 new Pride and Joy. 1.4 million per week and 76 million per year. And when there are more people, there are more mouths to be fed. In fact, there's more demand for all the stuff that we need to live. Energy, water, food, and space. Imagine that the world's population has tripled since the 1950s. That means that we need 3 times as much oil, wood, coal, uranium, electricity, potable water, fish, meat, cereals, vegetables, and of course space. Space to live, but also to grow the food and produce the goods that we need. But wait a minute, the Earth didn't increase by threefold, now did it? No, it didn't. We still have the same amount of natural resources we had then, or actually less, as we've kept consuming in the meantime. So this decreasing amount of natural resources has to be shared with an increasing amount of people. Oh, and did I mention that these people are consuming more individually as well? And what will we do when shortages appear? Take water, for instance. If the beginning of a river flows through one country, and they use all the water they need, and leave too little water to flow into the following country, what would you do? Fight over it? And how about oil? If your country has a monopoly on oil and shortages appear, would you still export it to the rest of the world? And if you'd keep it to yourself, do you think that the other countries will be okay with that? When it comes down to world population, is it really the more the merrier?
Okay, now coming from a worldview perspective, it's a reinterpretation. So, first question, what is the problem?
Population.
Versus the resources.
Their problem is
Too many people? I mean, that's the main problem. Because the resources is in actually a problem, but you cannot change it. But then I would say the real problem is the population. So the solution?
Less people.
Less people. So how do you do that?
Stop having babies, or you kill people.
Yeah, kill people.
Evolutionary secularism.
Yeah, evolution would be, I mean, it's the evolutionary process. The stronger survive, the weak die out. And how stupid the West is to take care of the weak. Let them die, because they anyway just eat our resources. I mean, they didn't say that, because it would be political incorrect. But everybody knows that in their hearts and their heart, you know the answer. And you say, okay, war. No, war is not too bad, because then, I mean, you come to these conclusions in your mind. And so, you see, that's a very manipulative video. It didn't say what they really want to say, but everybody knows what they want to say. So this is manipulation, so create these things in you. But I think it's absolutely wrong from a biblical Christian perspective. Think about killing a third of population, or 2/3 of a population actually. Then we can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. What's a third? What's 2/3 from 8? What should we do with that? Practical think about that. It's absolutely not human, or because then we really have to kill them. But when we go from the view, or this is the creation and this is all what we have, we put God out of that and we are limited to that, and we find a conclusion like this. But this will have horrible applications, like Marx, Hitler, and all of that. There are applications of Hitler, or this idea of evolution theory, the socialistic system, Lenin, Stalin, they all did that. I mean, the application of that, it's really not human. It's really against humanity. So to say that's the solution, it cannot be. I don't want to live in that world. I don't want to live in that. Man, the Chinese, they count with that, say, okay, I mean, the weaker is dying out, the strong is surviving. That's okay, that's the worldview. But here in the West, we have a different worldview. We have human rights. So the Chinese look to the West and say, well, how stupid they are, and especially Europe. Or they have all their human rights. There, everybody can come and speak up and say what he wants to say. This would not be in China. It will not work. It will bring a chaos. But they are so stupid. So this is the Chinese think about us. And when we would go and say, we have direct democracy in Switzerland, they say, are you idiots? Hey, we have a dictatorship. This will work. But we, the West, have these values from Christianity. We believed in human rights. We believed in separation of power. We believed that not one should have too much power because we are all sinners. And when one has too much power, he will misuse his power. Graham, don't look so holy to me. If you have too much power, you will misuse it. I will misuse it. So therefore, it's not good that one have too much power. Therefore, we have separation of power. That not somebody can misuse it. It came out of the idea that man is a sinner. And it's not good. He can never be good. It's not possible. So therefore, we need somehow of a bailout system like democracy who can kick out a ruler who is bad. These ideas came from the Christians, but the Chinese have an absolutely different worldview. And now we need to address this again in our Western world. And we need to address this in India and in Africa. In Africa, it's a bit a different way because they never had these principles. So in last century, almost all the African nations became independent. And the West say, okay, here, democracy, have it, look for a president. Did it work? No, almost no. It came to dictatorship and corruption, and it's still today a lot of corruption. Why is it like this? Because the system cannot work without the values. But the idea of the West is, we bring a system and then wonder, why is it not working? Why is it not working in Afghanistan? Why is it not working in Iraq? Why is it not working in Syria and Libya? And the CIA and the Americans, they say, we came and killed Osama bin Laden and we killed Saddam Hussein and so, and it didn't work. It promised that the values are not there. And democracy is not the guarantee for freedom. So the freedom is the guarantee for a democratical system. It means that first the people have to understand how does it work and meet the values. Then they create a democratical system. But you cannot take a democratical system and put it there and say you have freedom. It will never work. But this is a big mistake. And we, as Christians, we created this democratical system. Not just this, but this system, these values of the West. And so we cannot export it to other nations when we don't export the values. But when we don't have the values anymore, and we don't have God anymore, we have nothing to export. We just stand there and wonder why it's not working. And my assumption is a bit that it will not work in future. My hope is that it will work, but my guess is it will not work. And probably America will go to this nation, it will not work. And so the Chinese will come and have another worldview and say, we come, the stronger is surviving, it's tough, but this is working. But it's no more human. And it produced slaves. It has huge consequences. But we as Christians have to stand up. We have to stay against it. So the Chinese coming to Africa, a lot of nations, they take Africa and give them money, and Africa sell them all the resources and think, happy, they will help us. I think we have to be very, very careful. This is no more. We had a biblical Christian worldview from the West who was exported to the whole world. Even it was done often in a really bad way. But it came out of a Christian idea of human rights. Everybody has value. Everybody has the right to life. And so on and so on. All of this. But this world that's coming now from the Chinese, from probably Russia and so on, it's no more built on that. It's no more built on that. And we as Christians, we have to stand up and speak out. We are the one who can bring change. And when we really believe in God, then God is really active in his creation, and he will build his kingdom, and he wants to use you to build his kingdom. And you cannot say, I mean, yeah, okay, we cannot do something, the world is so strong. Of course it's strong. Look to David and Goliath. Was Goliath strong? He was strong, but David did it. You can do it. When you understand what is your calling, when you understand the view of man, what God put into you. So I have here, okay, yeah, or let's this, or it's another worldview that we face, this gender ideology. When there are so many different genders today, I mean, you don't know, they are female, they are let's see, I female, male, and gender. I cannot pronounce all these ideologies. But see, for 20 years ago, it was 100% clear. A man is a man, a wife is a wife. What does it bring to us? What does it help for our civilization? Nothing. It will just bring a destruction that in the end we don't know who we are. Think about just practical things. Think about the toilets. Do we need now 100 toilets for every gender one? Or do we have no more difference between this and this? Or and then many in the school, or think about sports. I mean, let's say we had Federer, probably you know, Roger Federer. Yeah, and so we have also others say let's play. Women should play with Roger Federer. Okay, because when all is equal, then why not they can play? It will not work. I mean, and these ideologists, they think it will work once, but when we look really to the human body, then we see there is a difference. And women have some specialties, but man has some specialties. But you cannot. But the scientists think, oh, we can change all of that, and in the end, all are equal, or all can choose their own. So when there is no more absolute truth, then there is no more truth. And there's a chaos. Everybody can choose what he wants to choose. But we have to stand up against that, and we have to bring alternatives. Not just standing up and make a revolution, say, no, the Bible say that. It will not help. We need to receive this language that we are able to speak to the secular world. Yeah, that's another. So I think that we are called to bring salvation to every sphere of society. To, let's say, now to agriculture. I have here agriculture. So farming in God's way. We will have a teaching about farming in God's way. Is the sustainable farming. So what the last 100 years was more the farming, how we can produce the most. I mean, this was the focus, how we can produce the most out of it. But it was not sustainable. And now we have to think how we can sustainable farming. It's not that we say everything was bad what they did, but we have to rethink. And something that I always say when they say, oh, today we destroy the world and it's so bad. And in the year 1970, it was not allowed to swim in a river in Switzerland because they were so stinky, were full of rubbish. But then the Swiss said, no, let's build a water treatment station and they will clean the river. And today there is a law that every community needs to have a water treatment station, and we will go in 2 weeks to visit one to make the water clean again. And the water needs to have the same quality after the community as it has before the community. So that every community actually has the same quality of water. I mean, they did it. It was not good. It was really bad, but they changed it. So we can change it. We stand not in the end of the world. Let's say when she talk about oil and so, but we have now the sun or the solar system, and the power of the sun is so big, and we can create so much energy out of the sun that it would be enough for 20 times the whole world or something like that. So, or 100 times. We are not in the end. We have to solve the problem that we made, of course. We should do that. But we can do it. And so we are called not just to have the same again. We are called to bring change. And now the agriculture has the focus. Let's bring into the right focus. Why not stop with agriculture, like some people say? Let's think about that. And I'm a politician. I was in a lot of debates, and I know a lot of farmers. They already do a lot of good things. But the people in the cities who have no clue of farming, they also always blame them. But I think we should really find solutions for the farmers. How can they do that? And not just stop it. Because when we stop farming, then the people in the city also have nothing to eat. And then the next one is family. Or we have a lot to say to family. Today, it's no more clear what a family is. And this gender ideology is coming from the top, from the UN, or they want to bring this policy in. So we, in construction, we have to think about the construction, about the buildings, about architecture, about the government. We were the one who brought this, the Western foundation of a political system. We were the one who brought this, the idea of a constitution, the idea of separation of power, of democracy, and so on and so on. So, but now this is no more so stable, because the values get lost, and we have to go into government again, and have to speak up. We 3 years ago in our SPCW, after the school, a student, we sat in the snack bar, and a student from Malawi, also Pioka from Malawi, he asked me, so how can I apply now the SPCW? And then I know he grew up by his uncle, and he was the cook of the president, or in the president palace. And so he know these people in politics, because he was there around them. And then I say, okay, next year is election in Malawi, so call them, call your friends. It was the biggest opposition party in this time. Call them, and we invite the head of the party and make with them a tour here in Switzerland, and tell them how nations can be changed through biblical values. What kind of values stand behind our system, and so on. So, and he was calling them, and 1 month later they were here in Wiler. They were in this classroom, and we had teaching to them. And then we went with them through Switzerland. We went to the government building, to the UN, to all of these places, to businesses, and try to explain them the values of Switzerland. Actually, they did a little SPCW in 1 week, or a bit more than 1 week. But today they have the president. The president, we had the ticket for the president, but he could not come. He didn't come in the end. But anyway, all the ministers and the head of the party, the secretary, they all were here. And now, let's say we are friends with them. I'm not really directly friends with them, but Pioka and my partner, they are really friends with them. They call them when something is, and so on. So we can make an impact. And the Swiss press said about the election, this is the hope for Africa. That's the first time as democracy won in Africa. And then say that because a former pastor became president. They acknowledge that a pastor became president. And this is really amazing. That's for me, as Swiss press, never say that. But they said, okay, a pastor has something to do with freedom, because probably he knows the best to bring. And we could be a part on this journey. And before, 20 years before, he was a pastor, and somebody had a vision, and they took him in the helicopter. My partner is in the board of this helicopter mission, and they took him in the helicopter and flew with him over Malawi, and they had a vision that he will become once president. And this was a vision 20 years ago. And he said, how can I become president? I'm a pastor. But now he is. He's the president. See, we can do something. Our prophecy can have an influence when we understand how to address that and how to speak it out. Like Benjamin said, go into the UN and then blow with your shaft horn and shout hallelujah. I don't think this is the language that is appropriate in these things. So we will hear about Benjamin, who is working in the UN, how he addresses, as a Christian, these people. And we could hear from him, he had really a heart for evangelism. But we need to address it in the right language to these people. So we can do that. Then let's say the next one is business, treating business. We have to understand how to do business. The whole business ideas were built up by the Christians. This win-win, or you heard in every class in the West, you learn in the university about this win-win system, or not just that you win, that both are winning. So there are a lot of systems that came up of Christianity. So we will see it later as well. So in techno and science, we will also have a mission in science, and he will tell us more about what we can do practically, develop techniques really to help and bless the people. So infrastructure, so we have to build infrastructure. We as Christians, we use a lot of infrastructure, and they are against the secular world. The secular world is all bad, but all use the infrastructure. All the churches use the infrastructure. They profit from it, but they do nothing for it. So I think that's something so bad. We have to think, what is the best system? I was a president of a political party, and sometimes I was also in the fraction and in the parliament, and discussed with them, with the politicians. And then there are some Christian politicians that we start, and so what was the highlight, and so on. Then they shared, my highlight is I could speak with one from the Green Party about Jesus Christ, or I could bring a Bible to someone, and I said, yeah, it's okay, it's good when you do that. But when this is your motivation, that you are sitting as an MP here, then it's the wrong motivation. People vote for you that you bring good solutions out of a biblical Christian perspective, and not sharing. That's not the main thing. Sharing the Bible and sharing the gospel is all our thing. But see, when then what really makes me angry is that they do that, but in their action they see something, they show something different. And this makes me really, I can tell you, sometimes I get really angry, because I saw that they pray, they ask for prayer day, and they have Swiss prayer day, and all is so holy, but in their action it's different. So they are not Christians, they are not really a testimony. And I think their view is wrong. So let's go to the next, is a place of worship. Of course, we should not forget that. I was a bit against the church, but the church is important. We should, people who create this place of worship where we can gather together and worship God. So education, we have to think about education. We heard that from Vishal. It's the foundation. The education is the foundation. Because education is about what is wrong and what is true. But we left it to the secular world, and we send our youth all to the public school, and they learn how the world would function when there would be no God. Or they not say there is no God, because they're political neutral, but what they teach is all out of a perspective that when there would be no God. So it's atheism. They say there is no God. So they separate now the world between this worldly thing, like all the practical thing, and the spiritual thing. Or they not say it's not, God is not there, or you can do your exercises in the church and can worship, nobody takes care of that, do what you want to do, but when you go to public, then this is here. And we somehow accepted that as a church. But we need to go back into education. This was Vishal Mangamari mentioned, the third revolution of education. We have to think about that. We were the foundation of education, but we lost that as Christians. So William Carey in India and so on. I mean, Martin Luther, who was creating the German language. And so communication, or we need to be in communication in media again. So we live now the secular world to communicate the thing. But of course, when they communicate out of their worldview. And we don't have to be surprised that we are not heard. I know people working in the Swiss media, also the public Swiss media television and so on. And they say it's amazing how many homosexuals working there. And of course, they don't do it probably consciously, or probably they do, but they talk out of their worldview and communicate, and all the media and all the events that happen, they interpret from their worldview. Therefore, we do this reinterpretation. Everything what we hear is already interpreted. We hear the things in an interpreted way. As well, when we read the Bible in an interpreted way. We interpret what we read in this, what we have already in mind. In our culture, in this context, we read the Bible and we see it there. When there is a preaching, then it's interpreted from the preacher. So therefore, we say in our assignment, reinterpretation. So we need to reinterpret again and think about what is the worldview, where does it come from? And this is then the worldview. But then the entirement. So we as Christians, we have a lot of events and things, and we do a lot of things, but it's for the church. We not think about what is tradition for a country, how we as Christians should be involved in this tradition and shape this tradition. So we wonder that then this tradition become occult. How we wonder when no Christian is there who shape these traditions. But so we are just focusing on the church, but the other things, it's going the way of secularism. Yeah. So I think we are called to be missionaries in every sphere of society. And this is something what we try to create. It's not that we give all the information to you how you can become a president or how you can become a businessman. We give some ideas, but we believe that it starts with the understanding who are you in Christ. It starts with this deep understanding. I am made in God's image. So probably to end this time here, we can go to a story from the Bible. And probably you know where this story is of David. Do you know the story of David? David and Goliath. That's common. So where is it? Where are the Bible teachers of you who know where it is?
17.
Yeah. Let's go to the scripture. Joel is really good. He did the BCC, huh? Therefore. So let's take about 21 or 1721. So the Israel and the Philistines moved into position for battle line facing battle line. Or that's the situation. David left the supplies he had with him in the care of the supply keeper and ran to the battle line. When he arrived there, he asked his brother about their well-being. As he was speaking with them, the Philistine champion named Goliath from Gath came up from the Philistine battle line and spoke his usual words as David listened. When all the Israelites saw the man, they fled from him and were very frightening. Did all of you see this man coming up? One Israel asked. He comes up to defy Israel, and the king will richly reward the man who kills him. He will give his daughter to him and will make his father's house tax-free in Israel. Oh, who wants to have that? Who wants to have the daughter of the king? Probably nobody of you. But who wants to have tax-free? Yeah, everybody loves it. But this was really great when you can have in this time it was a great thing. So now the story starts. So David asked the man who were standing by him, what will be done for the man who kills these Philistines and take away the reproach of Israel? Indeed, who is the uncircumcised Philistine that he shall defy the armies of the living God? So I don't think that David asked because he didn't hear. I mean, it was more so a rhetorical question. And the people also told him the same thing. This is what will be done for the man who kills him. So now there is a little boy. Let's say he probably was a teenager or probably was a young adult. But they were all afraid. But he stood up and started to ask questions. He stood up and asked questions. He didn't say, okay, I mean, oh wow, he's great. And then what's happened? What's happened to him? Eliab, his oldest brother, heard him talking to the man. Eliab was angry with David and say, why he was angry? What do you think? Why was Eliab angry? What do you think?
David was prideful.
Yeah. And so I tell you, when you stand up and want to change something, then your brothers, your sister, your mom, then you come, are you really sure? Can you do that? And so a lot of resistance will come when we start to stand up. So standing up is not easy. It's not easy. It will have resistance. And we have to come with that. When we think, okay, oh yes, I stand up, yeah. And you are not prepared that resistance will come, then you will give up when the resistance is coming. So the next one, and who did you leave those few sheep in the wilderness? I know your insolence and wicked intentions. You came down just to see the battle. I mean, that's not, then the people, they always bring the arguments about what they already believe. So it's your mind is justifying what your heart already decided. So, and here you can see that always happened in the Bible and in our lives. So to bring the argument. So he was angry, could not accept that his younger brother is standing up, and therefore he tried to bring all the arguments what make it logical to say that he is against it. And so David was cool. So what have I done? David asked. It was just a question, wasn't it? It was just a question. Then he turned from him toward another person and asked the same thing. The people replied to him the same. So he didn't give up. Oh, he didn't give us I didn't do something wrong here. And then he turned around and asked somebody else. I think we do a break. Is it okay? Then after the break, we go on with the story. Huh? Good. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Markus. Okay, so we will take 30 minutes break as usual, and then we come back.
Wunderbar.
Wunderbar. Yeah, we will meet 50 minutes before 11. 50 minutes before 11 in half an hour. Is it okay? So Indian has a different time, but
So let's say 30 minutes.
30 minutes.
Can you hear us? India?
It's great to see you.
Woohoo! Yeah.
In the story of David, because this story explaining us a lot. So coming now, the resistance from the brothers were there, but he didn't give up, and he went on. And then in 31, when the words that David had spoken were heard, they were reported to Saul, and he sent for him. So now, when you not give up to speaking out the words, then somehow you get to Saul, you get to the king, you get hurt. But it needs time, and there is a resistance. So Saul told David, you can't go against the Philistines and fight him. You are only a young man, but he has been a warrior since his youth. So, I mean, the next resistance is coming from, let's say, the secular world. Say, what? You did University of the Nation? What kind of university is that? Or what do you want to hear? You have no experience, you're too young. All of these excuses, because they do not believe that change is possible. So, yeah, they really hesitate. Saul by himself, he hesitated. Somebody really can kill these Philistines. So he also brought his argument out of his worldview. Then David, and now this is the thing. David said to Saul, your servant has been a shepherd for his father when a lion or a bear came and took a lamb from the flock. I will go out after it, strike it down, and rescue the lamb from its mouth. And when it rose up against me, I will grab it by its fur, strike it down, and kill it. Your servant has struck down both lions and bears, and his uncircumcised Philistines will be like one of them, since he defied the army of the living God. So, David he had a different worldview. He believed in God. So we can believe in God, and I can encourage you, and you think you stand up, but I tell you something. Resistance will come. It will be not easy. And when you're not prepared, you cannot overcome the resistance. So, but what David, he said, okay, I'm just a shepherd. I'm not one like you. I don't have the weapons. I am trained as a soldier, but I was a shepherd, and I took care of my field. I brought a change in my field. Even I was only a shepherd, but fighting against lion and bears. I don't know if this is only a little thing. You can think about that. But actually, he was trustworthy in the little what he had. And he could bring change in the little thing. And when he can bring change there, then you can also bring change there. But just have a dream to change the world, you will fail. You will fail. You need to be able to change your little daily thing. And then prepare yourself for once to bring the change to the world. And I think that a lot of Christians, they don't do that. They are probably dreamers. Dreamers dream of something. So if you want to change the world, then first change what you have to change. Then change what you can change. Also things that you not have to, nobody told you to do, but things that is able to do it. Serve a coffee to someone. You don't have to do it, but you can do it. And then when you do that, then you can think about doing the impossible. You're doing things that others are not doing. That it's impossible to do. God made us to bring change. And so David was so proud and really to stand up and say this to Saul. And when you can go to the king, and the king asks you this question, or let's say a president, I said to the president, why should I take you in my cabinet? Let's say like that. And you say, yeah, I never was there. I didn't do the same in university as them, but I was a carpenter and I brought change in my carpentry. There was once this and I changed it. Or I'm an architect and I create something where nothing was before. So I am equipped to change things. I wish you can say that if you're bold enough, if you are standing firm in your identity, then you will survive there. And then you will go and kill this giant. So we are called for that. And so David, just ending the story, David, then they want to put him the armor on. David said, "No, I cannot do it. It's too heavy for me." So another resistance or another problem is that if you want take his weapon and kill the Goliath with it. So yeah, I hope this story can help you a bit to understand.
Just real fast, you were muted that whole time talking, Ben. I don't know if you want to quickly summarize what you said or not.
Just no, just few seconds.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were muted the whole time. Sorry. Oh.
Also, do you hear me? Do you hear me? Yes. Okay. No, thank you very much. But I hope this story helped you a bit to understand. We are called to make change. But if you go on to make change, then you have resistance. It's not easy. Well, I'm talking here about theory, but practice is really not easy. But we are called for that. We are called to be warriors, going out, change something, and not to just wait and see how the things happen. We are called to make a change. That's our identity in Jesus Christ. Good. Let's go now to going back to the Bible. And what I believe is we not just have to become activists, say, oh yes, let's do. We need to have a biblical fundament. And I as well think that a lot of Christians are not really prepared for that. They don't have a really biblical foundation. They probably know God loves you. You are made in His. You are beautiful made. You are perfect made. Jesus will save you. He will forgive your sin. I mean, we know that, and a lot of preachings going a bit in this direction. And probably they also say, yeah, we should love one another, and so. But there is a lot more to understand if you really want to make a difference. And therefore, we should not just embrace what we hear about love and so, and then become activists. We really have to understand. I always say we are standing in a critical situation. Also, our financial system in the world is shaking. But I would have the solution, but nobody asked me. Do you know why I have the solution?
I also have a solution.
You
also have a solution.
You could have the solution. I don't know if you have it, but you could have the solution when you know what the Bible is telling about that.
Can you tell us?
Huh?
Can you tell us the solution?
Not yet. Not yet. But we come to that. But I think just the Bible gives us principles, and we have to go back to the Bible and try to understand that we really can bring practical solutions for the world. Let's say how a financial system can work in this complex world today. After the Second World War, there was Germany was collapsed. The currency was down. You could buy for 1 million German mark a bread or something like this. So it was really less. So then there was the question, so how to solve the problem? And there was some clever ideas around from Christians. One was called Ywam from Switzerland. And so they said, okay, we create a currency, let's say, based to the creation of God. So not just give money, like the American say we should do that. The Marshall Plan, probably you heard about that. They claimed that the Marshall Plan, also the money that they gave to Europe, or especially to Germany, helped them. They became so successful because of that. But the same the Russians did to the DDR. The same, also the Marshall Plan, East Marshall Plan, but it didn't work there. But it worked in Germany. So was it really the difference? I think not. Probably some part, but the thing is that they understood, okay, we collect all the resources, or we looked how much resources do we have in our country, like buildings, streets, knowledge. So how they counted, I don't know. And then according to that, they created money, printed money, and then they delivered the money to the people. When you have a house, you get that much, you get that much. So actually, the currency was built on a value behind it. Do you understand that? Today, the currencies or the money, it's say that 80 or 90%, it's just a finance market. It has no more practical value behind it. And I think that's one of the biggest problems. Right? That is a finance market is running around, but not really has to do with business or with practical things. So just to make the story short, typical Christian idea for business is not making money, it's adding value. So that's the goal for it. But coming back now to the view of man, the Bible will tell us about all these things. Yeah. So when we now look to the GDP in the world, so we can see there is a huge difference. Also, we call the Western world has this, what the color is that? Red? No, it's not red. It's the color of America and Europe. It's, what would you say in English? Yeah, actually, I say red, or dark red, or something like that. Brown, yes. But you see, this is more or less called the Western world, who has a high income. The question is just this: why is it different? Why is Africa so less? I mean, when you go to yellow, then this is really a low income. So what makes the difference? Why is it a difference? Because when you look to North America and South America, why Mexico make the border? Why is it like this? We as huh?
I thought you were asking a question. You were just
no, it's more a rhetorical question. Yeah. But when you have an answer,
that was a pretty general answer too. Just economic prosperity in general.
Yeah, but why? Why is it like this? So we as Christians have to ask this question. What is the reason behind it? When we look to corruption, you see the same picture. the counties who have a lot of corruption are poor. In the county where there is less corruption, they are not. It's the statistic from Wikipedia, not from myself. So you can see the Western world is again the one with the less corruption. And you see Switzerland in the middle of Europe. Can you see this blue point? That's very small. So we have really no corruption. I mean, there is also Norway and America, Canada. America is a bit more, but Canada, Australia. So why is it like this? And we have to come to the conclusion or ask the question, does income have something to do with corruption? Because, okay, now people would say, activists would say, oh, because they are poor, they are become corrupt. But you can also say, they are corrupt, therefore they are poor. So was first the egg or was first the chicken?
Yes.
Correlation versus causation.
Yeah, this is the question. But one thing that we really can see that it has a connection together. Corruption, I would say corruption causes poverty. Poverty is not something, it's not just we look to the resources, the things that we have, but poverty starts in our mind. To think who we are in Christ. This is poverty, when we do not understand who we are in Christ. That's, I would say, that's the beginning of poverty. And it has an effect. It has an effect that what's going inside of us and then with our outside. As long we not do this connection, as long we not really can change something. Do you know the onion, the worldview onion, or the culture onion? I mean, it starts inside, and we have to start that. We have to see it has to do something with our behavior. But how can we change the behaviors? So we have to think, how can we help? So to change the behavior, we need different values. What is bad and what is wrong? As long as we have no values, everybody can do what he wants. And everybody is doing what he feels is good for him. So as long as we not have values, who say that's not good what you do, and this is good, as long as we not have values, we cannot behave the right. So what we are doing now in the West, we behaving and we abolish the value because it do not fit anymore to our behavior. We change it. Do you see? We abolish the values that fit to our behavior, and then we wonder why there is no change. But the thing is that I think we have to create the values that we can change our behavior, and then the behavior will really change the problem in the world, in economy, the problem in the world, in our political system. So the statistics say that the world is going back to dictatorship. The last year it was a raising of democracy, but now it's going back. And we can look to Russia as a good example, but also America is a bit in a danger. And so that is going direct. That's true. And China is now the good example, and everybody's looking to China and say, let us be like China, then we have success in the world. So you see that there is a change in the whole world. So when we look to world religions, then we see the same picture again, that the Christian, Protestant, mostly Protestant influenced, the Protestant influenced nations are the richest nation in the world. Does it have a connection with your belief? People would not hear that. They don't want to hear that. They say, no, belief is private. You can believe whatever you want. It has nothing to do with one another. But I think I will now, I will show you more about that. But I think it has a connection, and we have to, as Christians, we have to think about that. We not mainly have to come to the same conclusion that I have also, but we have to learn to think about that. And we have to find out the relations between these things. When we not make that, we cannot really address something. So according to this statistic, the clear relation say, okay, the rich countries are the reformed countries in the world. So let's go on. And undernourished, it's the question, because let's see here, the world religions in the most evangelized continent in the last 100 years are Africa. In some African nations like Malawi, they have more than 80% Christians. In order, they have 95%. But why is it like this, that Africa is still the most unnourished continent in the world? Why, for me, why could Christianity change the West but not Africa? Why? And we have to ask this question when we want to really become relevant for the world, and have to think about that. My short conclusion is it's not the same gospel. It was not the same gospel in the West as it is in Africa now. So when we look here, I already told you 100 years ago there was almost no Christianity in Africa. There are some in Egypt, some in South Africa, Madagascar, Ethiopia. But now 100 years later, it was really, do you see this blue? It was really 95%, 90%, 80%. So, but there was no change actually in society. Why is it like this? Some historians say it is worse than before. The Christian made Africa worse than before. And I know our president from Youth with the Mission who was it? Yeah, he built up Ywam, South Africa. He also said that. What?
The police?
No, no, he died. He died some years ago.
Edwin's still alive. I saw him like a year ago, but
No.
it's not the same.
No, sometimes I get old. I forget the names. He was here. He lived here. How can I forget? But actually, yeah, and we have to think about that. Is it really the case? And so it's also with the Western. Let's look from a secular view that a lot of people say the help from the West made Africa worse and made Africa poor, because they become more and more dependent instead of becoming independent. And so I know it from a lot of nations, also Malawi. I mean, on the statistic, they are one of the most poor countries in the world. But it's not the case. When you are in Malawi, then you see that that's not the case. But the problem is that most of the business is done in the black market. It's not in the statistic. But when it's in the black market, there is no taxes, there's no income. So the state cannot survive by the citizens. They need the money from the West. And as long we give the money from the West, they do not change the system. And the most money is then ending in corruption. And this is true, it's ending in corruption. But it will not help them. We need to equip them that they can pay by themselves for the state, that not the state has to be paid from the West. So make them independent, help them to fish and not give them fish. But this is not just the Christian, that is also the secular view. But we have to rethink about this system and not just adding to the secular ideas and say, okay, we need money, let's give money, we select money and help the poor in Africa. They are not poor in Africa. This is the golden continent. When we compare to Switzerland, Switzerland has no resources. We have water, wood, that's all. We have no gold, we have not really sand. We have sand, of course, a bit of sand, but not for, yes.
You even don't have chocolate here.
No, not chocolate, we import that from, actually. But why is Switzerland so rich? I will tell you later about that. Some activists would say, okay, they have banks and they misuse all the money, blah, blah, blah. But of course, this is a factor. We misusing this, but this is not the point. As long as we just look for the one who is guilty, we cannot change something. We have to understand what can we change and not look to the bad guys who misuse the system. There will always be bad guys who misuse the system. But Switzerland, look to the richness of Switzerland, I think has another source than just this exploding of African nations or something. Do you have a question?
Yeah, kind of forming it. But like, you know, the Middle East has fascinated me for a long time because like, you know, Europeans came in and like, well, basically to ask the question, why is there so much unrest there? And you know, there's some great videos on it, but the idea being that like it was built to cause unrest. Like they didn't want peace, so they split ethnic groups in half and divided them all. And I think, at least from when I outside looking in, I think that also has a lot to do with it too. You know, like you have these like country borders who separate people groups and separating these people who should be together, which then causes so much like unrest within their own nation. And so I feel like even just like political demographic, like political lines, has so much to do with the unrest because when you have 5 different people groups or a majority and a minority slotted together in the same place having to work together, you know, there's this balance of power and representation that just like feeds dictatorships because you need to overthrow the other person, so you only 2 of you in. And so I feel like it's just a product of colonialism and poor drawing of borders even can also contribute to this.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I make it very basic. I mean, there are a lot of other problems too, and what you say is clear. And when we heard Vishal Mangalwadi, what is a nation? A nation is built on language, on values. Yeah. And when you put people groups together who not have the same value, but then there's really a conflict. So we have to think about that. And this is a very good thing. And there is a lot more to add to that than just. But I want to come to the point of the view of man, and not give you all the practical application. But this is very good, Graham. It's very good. So one who researched that was Max Weber. He is an economist. One is the famous economist from Germany from the last century, and he asked the same question: why some nations are rich and some not? And he is not particular Christian. He's not atheist or so, but he did it out of a secular view. So this was his conclusion. He came to John Calvin, the reformer. I said, John Calvin was the beginning. The preaching of John Calvin made the West. So what John Calvin? We saw him in Geneva last week, on the wall, frozen. But what did he preach? And he preached God created the world and he blew his into us. So I mean, and he said, okay, God created the world and he blew his spirit into us. Therefore, we are a living being. We are in God's image because we have this spirit, Ruach, we have that. And here the conclusion, because God created out of nothing something, he created the world, we are able to create out of nothing something. Because we have the spirit of work. We are not dependent on the resources of this world, we dependent on the resources of the spirit, or we dependent on the spirit. This was the claiming, also he didn't claim it directly as I did, because he didn't understand exactly Christianity and so, but he came to the conclusion it was he said then capitalism. So Calvin was the father of capitalism. He created this capitalism, so you can create more than what was before. So here is in Genesis 2:19. So now out of the ground the Lord God has formed every beast of the field and every bird of the heaven and brought them to man to see what he would call them. And whatever the man called it, every living creature, that was its name. So this was also a very important thing where Christians hold on. So you suppress God, you know that? You can suppress God. God didn't say to Adam, okay, now I bring all the animal and you put I gave you on the animals or something like that. So he brought the animals to Adam and Eve, and they bless you. And he said, That's an elephant. That's a giraffe. Oh, yeah, this one is a dog, and so on. And then God came to him and said, wow, that's great. Where do you have this name from? I have it from you. I have the same spirit as you. I'm your junior partner. Therefore, I can create new names. And God was happy about it. So Adam surprised God. And we as Christians have to come to this idea that we can surprise God. The God is not sitting there and you do this and you do this, you do this. That's an animal in a stall. That's a cow eating grass. So when you have grass, you eat grass. When you have worm, you have worm. When you are in, you are in. When you are out, you are out. No. You have to decide by yourself. You are his junior partner. But he wants that you do it in the light of him, with his value. That's the idea. So we should be transformed in his image to understand what would Jesus do. So this, you know, this that we have around our arms, what would Jesus do? That's the question. It's probably not what is, so how. It's probably the better. So how would Jesus do it? So we should be creative, but we should do it in a way of God. And this is love one another. Be nice to one another. When you want to be a leader, be a servant, and all of that. We know that from the speeches of Jesus. But this is the point. And I think this makes a huge difference. You can surprise God. I often hear the word, especially from all churches, to say, tomorrow when we still living, we will do this and this, or God will allow to do that, and we do this. Somehow I don't like that. I think it brings us a bit in a fatalism. So, like fatally sitting there and waiting until God is moving something. And of course, the danger is that we fall down on the other side of the horse and say, we can do everything. No, I cannot do everything. It's in God's hand. But we can do something. We can first do what we are responsible to do. So when you not do what you have to do, don't listen to me for the next hour. First, you have to do what you have to do. Then you learn to do more. You do what you can do. Serve a coffee in the break. Help somebody or write an article in a newspaper. So you can do that, but you don't have to do. And then you start to then think about doing bigger things. Change the world. You can do that. But we have to come to conclusion. We can surprise God. As long as we think we cannot surprise God, everything is determined by God. We not really can come in this spirit that was shared by Reformation in this time. So I symbolize this in that. So the world had two systems. One is called the closed system, and one is the open system. So in a closed system is like closed. So it have only for so much, not more. When we are more people, then we have divided to more. But in an open system, it's like this, or just it's always bigger and bigger. So he in the video they say about the oil is limited, and the question is anyway, is it really limited, or how much oil do we have? Others would say that and this, but we have the sun, and the sun has so much energy that it's endless. So we are not a limit. And how people say, okay, we have the world, but why not other planets? Why we not have ideas to go to other planets and do things there? Why are we limited to this world? The whole university is to God. We can go out. We can discover that. There is no limits. So I think we should think in an open system, and it starts by God is the creator. God is the giver. He will give us enough. There is enough for everybody. We don't have to be afraid to lose. We can know that God will provide us. He will give us. It's also your open system is when somebody is hurt and we pray and he gets healed. I mean, a closed system would never believe that he gets healed because it's out of the resources of the sport. But it's possible. Healing can happen. It can, but we not just should think in this, okay, we pray and something happens. We should think how we can bring healing, how we can find new medicine for healing the person, how we can discover the world, and so on and so on. How we can put the solar system to create energy that we have for the world, how we can do sustainable agriculture, and so on and so on. Yeah, but living in an open system is this what he found out. This preaching of John Calvin made that people started to think in an open system and no more in closed system. It means before, when people were poor, they think, oh, we are poor. So the only thing was the survival modus and how can we survive. But they never would think, okay, we can become rich. They had no opportunity. They were limited by the church to really grow. Let's look to India. So India have the caste system. So Joel is from the highest caste. No, it's not. You are like predestinated to be poor because you are in a low caste. That's India, but how? And we know the story of our slumdog millionaire. Woo! And we like this story. Why do we like it? Because it shows God's idea for us humans. We are not limited by our what we are, where we are living, and so on. We are limited by the Spirit of God, and this is what can create more things. So add to his creation an example. You have a river, water, and then you put a wheel into it, and you have still the water, but you have electricity. So actually you created more out of nothing. That's what often is told about capitalism, so this idea to create more. Let's come back to the Bible, a story from the Bible, from Abraham. So Abraham and Lot, they quarreled. There was a conflict, or let's say the shepherd of them, they had a conflict. So Lot and Abraham came together and they decided we have to separate because there is not enough space for us. So they stood on this mountain, and on one side it was like a desert, like not really a great land. And on the other side it was a beautiful land. It was the Jordan River with a lot of civilization. So Sodom and Gomorrah, the big cities were there. So now is the question, okay, we have to separate. One have to go to the desert, another has to go to the fertile land. I ask you now the question, do you take the first or do you take the second? When you can choose. Second. Sima is taking the first, but she really will tell you about why she's taking the first with the project that she's doing. No, but so Abraham said then, okay, so when I take the first one, as the desert, then I am stupid because nobody would do that. But when I take the fertile land, then I send my nephew to the desert. So this is also not great.
And I can also not send my nephew to the desert. So.
Yeah. But this is also not good because it was the nephew or the so. But he said, okay, I leave it up to God. And he was the older one, and he could decide in this culture. But he said, Lord, you can decide first. And he knew, 100% he knew that Lord would take the fertile land, right? So Lord take the fertile land, and he had to go to the desert, or he had to stay there. And when we read some chapters later, what's happened? Sodom and Gomorrah burned up, Lot had to flee, and Abraham became the richest man. How can this be? How can this be? So Abraham said, when you send me to the desert and there is no water, I have the ability to create water. So we read that in the Bible. What did he do? The wells, yes, and And he did more wells, and the animals had water, they could eat, they grew, and there was became somehow a fertile land. It's like the Israelites in 1946, as they came to Israel. Before it was a desert, but they made out of the desert a fertile land. And of course, they created a lot of conflicts too. And there's another debate about how you can solve that, or how you can be engaged in that, and what you should think about them. But they made a fertile land out of the desert. So because they believed in the Spirit of God, we can do it. This worldview will make you able to create something. Sima, she was really committed to go back to her village where there is nothing, they don't have water, and she went there, and first time she went last year, she created water for 20 families, flowing water in 20 families. And the second time it was 15 families or something, or 30. But she could change it. Can she change that? But you can say, no, I never want to go to such an ugly place. I mean, I want to go to the city where civilization is, or there you can do things. There I can go to the cinema, to the theater, to all of the things. There is life, there is, wow, beauty. I don't want to go to the desert. But see, that's not, I don't think it's the Spirit of God. Of course, He can call you into the city. It's not about that. But it's about how is your worldview? What do you look to? Do you really believe that God can change something through you? Or are you a consumer? And say, okay, yeah, I go where I can consume the most. Or I can do the best business, or I don't know what else you can say. Yeah, so let's see, the socialistic worldview, I just have to find here this one. And just that I can simulate something. So coming back. Also the socialistic worldview, in contrast, you look, it's like a world, a closed system, and you distribute the resources to the amount of people you have. That's called socialism, or that's called justice. Everybody has the same, equal. So what's now happened when, let's say, somebody take the double? Do you see that? Then the other have less. Or let's say he's even better, he make 4, then the others have less. So in a closed system, it's always about the stronger will win, the weak will survive. And because this is the case, so Karl Marx thought, so we have to kill all the rich people, then abolish and take all the income and so, and in the end nobody has something anymore. Then we have a right world. So, but you see, a closed system will never bring justice. Never bring justice, because in a closed system, like socialism, it will reduce the capacity of creativity. Because in a social system, I was in North Korea. When somebody stand up and have an idea, the government take it down. Nobody can have a deal because then you have more than others. And so they put people always down. But there will always be smart people who have more, and then the other have less. And it ended always in North Korea or in Russia or so that the politics and the governors and president, they lived in luxury, but the others have nothing. There was not a social system. Never, communism was never a social system. We say that when Karl Marx would live in Russia, they killed him. They would kill him because it was never a social system. It always ended in dictatorship everywhere. So socialism is actually really against this idea of of the Spirit of God to bring creativity. So the social system, I mean, Karl Marx was the father of the social system. Probably know that or had that in school. So his main problem and solution, also he saw that the world is injustice. And in this time, it was the beginning of the industrialization. The people worked before. There was family businesses and so, but now they became business, and the people went to the business. They were no more at home, and they had to work in the business for 15 hours, 6 days a week, or even 7. Children had to work in a factory, and there was a lot of really injustice and a lot of poverty. And often the Christians, or no, actually always the Christians, they run the business. They were the big guys. They made a lot of money, but they misused a lot of people. It was also the time of William. We saw the film of Amazing Grace, or it was Wilberforce. It was in this time, or on this injustice. So where people also had slaves, worked for them. Christians had slaves and worked for them. So Karl Marx grew up in a Christian family. He was a Jewish, but his father converted to a pietistic church and was really committed. But he said, no, Christianity cannot be true, because Christianity creates a lot of injustice. And he called himself then to become one of the first atheists. And he came to the conclusion and say, you're talking about sin, and so that's absolutely stupid. Sin is only there to manipulate people. So the clerics and the pastor, they talk, you are sinner, and just to control you. And so this idea of sin is just a system to control you. There is no sin, and there is no God. And when there is no God, then there is also no giver. So therefore, everything what you claim it's mine, it's stolen. Do you understand that? This was his idea. When there is no God, so to have own property, you claim because God gave you this property, or somebody gave it to you. When nobody gave it to you, then you stole it. Does it make sense? So this was his foundation. Or when there is no God and there is no giver, therefore nobody can have something, and everybody who claims to have something is a thief. And therefore everybody who hold on his property and hold on his thing, we have to kill him, or we have to bring him down. So, and he wrote this communistic manifesto. You can read once through. It's the abolishing of all private property, and also claiming that's my wife would not fit in that, because when I claim that's my wife, then somebody else cannot have this wife. So there is, in his idea, that there is no more private property. Everything belongs to everyone. Only with this we can really then have a perfect world, a harmony. Because you get angry and you get bad because another has more than you, and this makes you angry. So when everybody has nothing, then you cannot be angry anymore, and we have a nice world. And that's his philosophy. And I mean, he is not stupid, and his logical arguments and his book make really sense. When there would be no God, how will bring justice in the world? But actually there is a God. And he reduced, and socialism, communism reduced all the creativity, all the businesses, and everywhere where communism came in, so the countries get poor. And we can observe that they became poor not just because of socialism, but also because of dictatorship. But this system never could help. So the system that the Christian built up is really, really the right one. I would say really can bring justice to the world. So let's come back to Switzerland. So how created Switzerland is well. Switzerland is actually very poor it's depending to in the Middle Age or depending to the other nations, or like say Paris and Milan and Amsterdam and all these big cities, and Switzerland was a farmer place with a lot of farmers, but not really a rich country. So the problem of Switzerland is that it's in the midst of Europe. And trading was done to Italy, to Venedig, to Milano, to Napoli, and so on, or to Amsterdam, to Madrid, and Barcelona, and so on. And so they trade then through the countries, but the last one was Switzerland. And in Switzerland, there were mountains through Switzerland, and they could hardly not overcome the mountains. So trading went through these mountains. And so actually, let's say Switzerland was in the end. And in the end, from both sides. From the north, they came down from the East Sea or the North Sea. They came down out of Amsterdam, and so bringing all the trading, and the end was Switzerland. And on the other hand, they came from Italy down to the mountains. And so actually, Switzerland was in the end at the end of the world. But then a clever man in the 19th century had an idea: make Switzerland the center of Europe. How can you do that? Do you have some idea? He said, let us dig a tunnel, and this was over 150 years ago. Maybe because the trains, the idea with trains came, and so said, let's dig a tunnel, and then we can become the middle of Europe, because the trading will happen from Italy to Germany through the tunnel. And Switzerland became the midst of Europe. And it's amazing in this time to think about doing something like this. It's amazing. And everybody say, no, we never can do that. It's not possible. Don't think about that. And there was a lot of resistance, but at the end, let's say the Swiss did it and became the middle of Europe. And the trading happened then through Europe. It was through Europe. The other thing is, what do you do when you are poor, sitting in Switzerland, do some farming, agriculture, and nothing else? You can say, okay, I go to Italy, I go to Germany, I flee. I want to become rich somewhere else. And a lot of people do that now, fleeing from Africa to Europe, to think to become rich. No, that's not God's way. God's way is look to what God gave you. Use your mind to create something out of it. And you have enough. So Switzerland did that, and therefore it became the middle of Europe. And the trading happened now through Switzerland. Another example, cheese. Probably you heard that the Swiss eat a lot of cheese. And this is really common. It's always on our plates. So, but the cheese, it was not always there. So it was the idea that in Switzerland we have half of the year snow. Like here, we have outside, so nothing is growing. You cannot earn something. You cannot harvest something. So what do you do? How you can survive in winter? And in a lot of places, half of a year, there is no income. There is nothing to earn, nothing to harvest. Also, we were agriculture society in this time. So they said, okay, we could have an idea. So because on the mountains, it's really hard to cut the grass or put it in barns, but we can put our animals up to the mountains in summer. And then in the valley, we cut the grass and store them in barn. So in the winter, we have food for the animals. Water we have enough, that's not a problem. But in the winter, we have food for the animals. And in summer, they eat something else. And they say, okay, now what do you do with the milk in the Alps? because bring them to the city, there was almost not possible, and it was then too much to bring to the city, and you couldn't store it. You have to create something out of the milk that hold longer. So, and cheese was one answer. So to create a cheese, and you can hold your cheese for 2-3 years. So they created cheese in the summer with them. They went down in the winter. They sold the cheese in the cities, could make money with it, and also had something to eat with the cheese. So they thought about thinking, what can we do with our resources? Not fleeing, or another way would be conquering the others and steal their food from them. That's also a solution, but it's not a biblical solution. The biblical solution is to understand what God gave you and create out something with it. So the preaching was the foundation of the transformation. We are made in His image. So therefore, we are able to create more. But when God disappears in our society, then we start to think just in a closed system. We don't believe that we can do really more, because we don't believe that we have a spirit. Then the conclusion is that that society or say nature is determined man, and no more man is determined nature, and this will lead to poverty. And I think we as Christians have to understand this process. And so the second one, He blew His spirit into man and made man to a living being. And therefore we are different than to animals or different to any other creations. Also, the word capitalism came from John Calvin. That was he claimed in his book. So capitalism means from the Latin word caput. It came from the word caput. And as before the Reformation, the language was Latin, or the Latin, so they say the caput. So God actually blew the caput in you. And therefore, because you have this caput, and caput means head, mind, or spirit, you have this, you are able to create more because of this caput. So the caput makes us able to create more, the spirit of God. And out of this then capitalism came. And probably capitalism today, that's a curse for a lot of Christians. They say, when I ask, what do you like more? Especially in the West, what should the Christian be involved in socialism or capitalism? Most would say socialism in the West, because they think, oh, this is justice, nice for everybody, but it will kill the spirit of God. It will kill this creativity. And so capitalism became a curse as well, because the spirit of God disappeared in capitalism. And capitalism became just, I want to make more, I'm the stronger, and therefore I win, and the others have the problem when they are losing. But this is also not biblically. Today, capitalism is more biblically than socialism. But socialism came out from atheism. There is no God, and capitalism came out from there is a God, and the Spirit of God makes us different. But today we have to challenge both of them, because the today capitalism is not okay. Just making more, don't look what's happened, go over death, and so on. Yeah, we can also go back to Geneva, a principle from Geneva. So before the Reformation, it was forbidden by the Catholic Church to take credit, to take a loan. Or loan, as a credit is a loan, or take a loan. We here say credits, and the English say more loans. So credit, the word, what does it mean? It's also coming from the Latin word, and when I say you the word, you would know what it means. Credo, you know what credo means.
To create.
No, credo means belief. So also So, and then John Calvin, and here is also when you want to research that in internet, there is a letter that he wrote to a banker in Germany. Also, then the question was from the banker to John Calvin, is it allowed to give loans and take interest for it? And Calvin wrote back, yes, it's allowed. The Bible allowed that. And we will go and research that and in the Bible to find the scripture. But the Catholic Church say, okay, the Bible says you should not take interest. A lot of Christians understand you should not take interest. It doesn't say that. But you can find it out by yourself. I don't say it to you. But then you say, no, it doesn't say that. It's allowed to give a loan and take interest for it. And he made an interest. He say how much interest, and he say 4%. And this idea of business model then was the foundation for 400 years. That is allowed to take credits or interest, and interest, but not more than 4%. Yes.
When was this?
This was 1550, around this time. You will see that in the letter, but it's around 36 was the Reformation, so I would say 52, something like this. 1552, so 100% I cannot say that. But this was then, this was the foundation, and his idea of credit is that. I say it's belief. So we call that belief. When you give a loan, we call that belief. Because the one who gives something believes that you can pay it back. So he will turn the system of today. So, and he, according to the Bible, so when do you have to pay the credit back? You will find it out by yourself. But now, when?
Whenever you want, just the longer you take, the more interest that's on it.
No, the Bible says after 7 years.
Oh, yeah.
After 7, so, or let's say in the 7th year. So after 6 years would be in the 7th year. It can also be a bit of language when exactly, but I think it's not absolutely necessary because 7 is also symbolic language. But anyway, it has to be paid back. So the 7th year, they are free again. So everybody who gives a loan have to make sure or believe that in the 7th year you can pay it back. If you not can pay it back, what's happened?
Forgiven.
You have to release it. Yes. Okay, then who is now on whom is the real responsibility? The one you gave. But today the system is different. Who is responsible?
One who lends.
The one who lends. And the banks don't want your money back. They're living from the interest. And they created a business model that their income is their interest. It's really complicated. But the problem is when you go and want to pay back, I have a loan by the bank, they don't want it, that I pay it back. They don't want it. And actually, it's bad for my taxes. If I pay back, then I have less debt, so I pay more taxes. And also, this system is wrong. So they don't want it back because this is the money system that is working. And when you pay it back, then you actually destroy money. But this is another. We will not go deep in it. But we have to understand that as Christians. We have to think about that. We have the solution. But we need also have the position to stand there to say something. But when we not have God, then we cannot come to these ideas. And therefore, the financing system is going the way that it's going. But I hope that some of you will stand up and will become somebody who has influence in this finance system. So just this, or Geneva, also a reform that Calvin did, was a lot of people were poor and they were victims, so they had the right to go to the monastery and ask for food. begging on the street. So Calvin say, no, I forbid that. You have first to go to your relatives and ask for work. And so there is no beggar on the street. So we will find out to whom belongs this beggar, then we go to the family, and every beggar has first to look if he can work. When the family cannot support that, then we look for the community. So we look that he made districts in Geneva. There were different districts. So the districts were responsible. When this not function, then the church were responsible. And this not function, then the state. But you could not go directly, just hold your hand and say, I am poor, give me something. There was no beggar. So everybody was sent to work. And when you could not do it like widow, like all the who were mentioned in the Bible, then it's okay. I mean, it's not that we not support you, but the idea was create self-responsibility and not dependence. What we do a lot in our social care system is we create dependency. And the people get dependence, they receive money. Why should they change something when they receive the money? But so the idea is really, and we have to think on our social system. The social system today in the West is no more working as before. It's shaking. We have too much old people and too less young people who support the retirement for the old people. So financially, we have a big problem. We have to rethink how we can create self-responsibility. Because when everybody is just going to the state and starts the state, give me. I mean, the state is not the giver of the world. God is the giver. So we are responsible to create a new social system. So investing instead of consuming, a lot of Christians, I think is just a consumer. Sitting in church, consume, have nice time, and when the preaching is not okay, then he go to other church, and so on. So this consuming attitude, we are not consumers. We have to come to a producer, to an investor, invest in things, and ask God, where can I invest in people, in things that I can add value and can create new things. You have to think that everything that you have was paid from someone. We would have nothing if there would not be people who created it for us. Did you hear that? Not everything what we have was paid from someone. So we should not be the consumer. We should be the producer, and we want to pay for our next generation. We want to build up. We want to build up for our children. But the children should not only become consumers, they also should become producers. But this, I think, we have to rethink in our thinking, not just stay there, consume the churches and the worship and blah, blah, blah. So we should learn to ask God, where can we change something? And because 95% are not in church activities, you have to think outside. How can we change in our business? How can I do a difference? That people seeing me and see that Christianity is different, coming and asking questions. How can we articulate the problems in the world out of a biblical Christian perspective? So terms in economy is also credit, is coming from the Latin word credo, or the debtors and the creditors. Probably you heard these terms. They function much better in German, but they are all coming, the guilty one and the believer, they're coming from the Bible. So actually our whole economical system is built on the Bible. So probably here to conclude, make a point to say what could then be a biblical Christian understanding of economy. That it's probably now we have the foundation of the Bible, but now we think in the terms of the world. So how can we build an economical system for that? So I think there are four views. 4 worldviews. The worldview is the foundation. First is yours is mine. That's socialism. Also, you say that the best justice system is everybody have everything or nothing. So we all share to one another, then we are all happy. But I showed you to what does it lead. Or when you say yours is mine, that's stealing. So you're stealing from one another. Because when you have something, then you take responsibility for that. When it's not yours, then you don't take that responsibility. So ownership is actually the tool how God is really building up, helping us to understand what is responsibility. We only can have responsibility when we have something, and we take care of that. When you are in a business, I worked in a business, and you have a car, and nobody, the car belongs to the business, and then the car is, it's damaged. Did you do that? No, it was before. Did you do that? Nobody is guilty. And there is nobody who really, who say that's mine, then you can push the guilt to one another, and nobody in the end is responsible for it. So I think it really cannot work. It's a good idea, and Christians, a lot of Christians in the West are going in this social ideas direction.
And in Acts, when it says that the disciples shared everything with each other and made sure that no one was without anything, how would you describe the difference between that and what socialism is described as?
Yeah, that's a good question. A lot of Christians come with this scripture. I'm prepared. No, but yeah, I mean, Acts, we have to see the content. I mean, Acts was written by Luke. Luke was not really Christian, or not in this time, or we don't know exactly. But actually, he was employed by a ruler who say, go and research what is about this Jesus, and he observed that. So let's say, and when Luke say also in Luke, which all went to baptize in the river in Jericho. Do you think all the city was empty and all went? No. I mean, his language, when he say all, was more, wow, it's okay. They shared everything with one another. But it's not that everybody shared everything with everybody. So it was, and we have to see, that's not the advice from God. He didn't, let's say, out of a biblical worldview, he looked from a secular world, and so, the Romans, they looked all for themselves, but the Christians, they are so, and then the other thing is that the worldview of these Christians, in this time, they were, Jesus is coming back, so they're waiting for Jesus is coming back, but Jesus didn't come back, and then he destroyed Jerusalem, and they had to flee out. I mean, this is what, go out and bring the gospel to the nations. But this world where Jesus is coming back, and you read later in Acts that they get poor, and Antiochia, the new center of Christianity, had to select money to bring to Jerusalem. Because when you have nothing anymore, then you cannot create more. You cannot share with others. You can only give to others when you have something. So they didn't have and became dependent on the church of Antioch, even they were the hub of Christianity in the beginning. So I don't want to say it black and white, but I think we cannot really put everything now on this verse. What I think is we should be responsible for the poor, and we should look and we should share. But let's see the other thing. Also, the next one is mine is mine. That I would say it's capitalism. Or say, I look for myself and you look for you, and when you don't have it, then it's your problem. And this will bring slavery, will bring all the injustice, because not everybody has the same opportunity as you have. And when we only look for ourselves, that's not the view of God. So I would say that today view of capitalism is absolutely wrong. It's not biblical. The source of it is biblically, but the application today, just look for yourself, is not. So the next one is mine is yours. And this is this is called these cooperatives. We have this, like say the Migros is a cooperative, or let's say it was. Today it's more capitalism, but it's another. But when people come together, put their money together, and say, for free, we put the money together to do business. And when this business is collapsing, we losing all our money. So all are the same. We are all in the same boat. But the monasteries, they also did that. Or monastery, you gave all the money in, and then, but I would say in monastery there is a problem. You gave all your money in the monastery, and let's say the monastery changed, and you are no more agree with that. So you are, and this happened in the Middle Age, or these people had nothing anymore. They were dependent on the monastery, and so I think not that's a really good model. But cooperatives, we will hear more about cooperatives from Professor Dr. Wieland, who will tell us more about Raiffeisen, who create these cooperatives here in the West. But I think it's a good idea. Also, kibbutz was one in Israel, was this kibbutz, the idea that you gave everything and lived together and do agriculture. But I think personally, these cooperatives are a really good idea. But it should be limited. You should not give everything in. Also, marriage is something like this, or in a marriage, you give everything in. But somehow, the marriages you really build on the same values. And when you don't have the same values, then I would not do it. And you should, in a business always limit yourself, your private and your business, that when your business collapses, that not everything is gone. So I think cooperatives is a way, can be a good way, but it has its weaknesses. So the best way of seeing to it, I would say, is what is mine is not mine. So we are stewards of what God gave to us. It's not just mine. So we are stewards, and therefore we have the responsibility to give to others. But we give to others because we know that they take the responsibility to add value, not just be consumers. We not give to consumers. We give to people who can grow, who invest their money for good things. And when you want to have a word, then you can say this is the social market economy. And this came out from Christianity. After the Second World War, or in the Second World War, there was an organization. They received a hotel in Schwo, in Montreux, in Switzerland. They received really a fancy, big, great hotel, a palace. Because in the Second World War, the thing collapsed and the people didn't come. And so they received this hotel, and they were like Ywamers. They invited them people to renovate this hotel, and then for the first meeting, I think they invited 2,000 people. And it was the Schumann became then the president of France. Adenauer became the president of Germany. They invited all these people, and they started with repentant and say we need another way, or a third way between socialism and capitalism. And so they came out with the idea of the social market economy. That means we have still these private companies, but we have a social state. And the social state takes taxes from the private company to distribute it to the people who are in need. When we just have private companies, it cannot work. And we saw that it didn't work. It became always injustice. So let's say, take that and distribute it to the one who really are in need. And this seems then always a conflict between left and right, but this was then an idea coming out of Christianity. I think it's a good idea. You are not the owner. It belongs to me. I am the one. It's a gift from God. And so you are the steward of it. And so you steward it and not you own it. So that was then the idea. So I hope this helps you a bit to understand the view of man. We are created to create new things, and we have the opportunity, really in us, this opportunity to create amazing things, to give answers to King to the world. Amen. I will give it back to Angela.
So maybe some of you have some questions that you want to ask, then we can do that now. Then the people from Zoom can also still hear it and learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any questions? No.
Please ask.